Daniel was a simple young man. Every night after work, he carried a bag of leftover food. He walked down the quiet street to feed stray dogs. He loved the animals and they loved him back. When he whistled, the dogs came running, tails wagging, hungry eyes shining. Daniel always smiled. "Here you go, friends," he said softly. That night was different. The air felt heavy. The sky was dark with storm clouds. Wind pushed trash down the road. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. The dogs barked strangely, not in joy but in fear. Daniel frowned. "What's wrong, buddies?" he whispered. The dogs stood frozen, ears up, looking at the alley. Something moved in the shadows. At first, Daniel thought it was a thief or another dog. He stepped closer, careful but curious. He heard a sound, soft crying. Weak and strange, not the cry of a child, not the growl of an animal. It was something in between. His heart beat faster. Lightning lit the alley for 1 second. Daniel gasped. He saw 2 small figures crouching behind trash bins. Their eyes glowed faintly, wide with fear. Their clothes were torn, their faces pale and tired. They looked thin, almost starving, but they were not normal children. Their skin was faintly silver under the light. Their fingers too long, they were not from this world. Daniel froze, his mind shouted, "Aliens! No, this is impossible," but his heart whispered, "They look scared, they look hungry." The figures trembled, watching him. One of them whispered something. The voice broken, the words strange, Daniel could not understand. But he heard the fear. He slowly knelt down, showing his hands. "Hey, it's okay, I won't hurt you," he said softly. The dogs stood behind him, growling but not moving forward. Even they felt the strangeness of these 2 beings. Daniel opened his bag. He took out bread and small pieces of meat. He placed the food on the ground and pushed it closer. The 2 figures hesitated, looking at each other. Then one reached forward, shaking, grabbed the bread and bit it quickly. The other followed, eating like someone who had not eaten for days. Daniel felt his chest tighten. They were starving, weak and lost. Not monsters, not enemies, but children far away from home. "Where did you come from?" he whispered. They looked at him but gave no answer. Their mouths moved, strange sounds came out. One word was clear. "Run, danger." Daniel's blood turned cold. Danger? From where? Who? He looked around. The street was empty. Rain beginning to fall. But something did not feel right. His eyes caught the corner of a black car parked far away. Engine silent, windows dark. Too still, too quiet. Daniel felt watched. The 2 figures huddled closer together, fear in their glowing eyes. Thunder crashed again and Daniel made a choice. He whispered to the girls, "Come with me, quick." They did not understand his words, but they understood his hands when he offered them. With hesitation they stood up, weak legs shaking. They were lighter than human children. Fragile like glass, Daniel guided them out of the alley. The dogs followed close, ears flat, as if guarding their human friend. Every step Daniel took, he felt the weight of danger. His mind was full of questions. Who are they? Why are they here? What danger is coming? But one thought was stronger. They need me. If he left them, they might die. And he could not walk away. As they turned the corner, Daniel glanced back. The black car was still there, but now, in the reflection of the wet road, he thought he saw movement. A shadow inside, watching him, his stomach turned cold. The girls looked at him with wide eyes. They seemed to know that danger was already near. Daniel pulled his hood up, held their small hands, and whispered, "Don't worry. You're safe with me." The wind howled, the rain fell harder somewhere behind. The sound of a car door clicked open, but Daniel did not stop. He had found 2 starving alien girls, and now, without understanding why, he had become their protector. Daniel pushed open the door of his small apartment. The 2 strange girls followed him slowly, their bare feet leaving wet marks on the floor. The dogs stopped at the entrance, growling softly as if warning, but they did not enter. Daniel closed the door quickly and locked it. His heart still racing, the storm outside roared louder, lightning flashing through the window inside. The room was warm and filled with the smell of food. The girls looked around with wide eyes, their silver-tinted skin glowing faintly in the dim light. They shivered, holding each other tightly. As if afraid everything around them was dangerous, Daniel knelt down and spoke gently. "You're safe here." They did not understand all his words, but they seemed to sense the kindness in his voice. He guided them to sit on the old couch. They sat stiff, their glowing eyes darting around nervously. Daniel went to the kitchen and brought water in 2 cups. When he placed them on the table, one girl sniffed at first. Unsure, then drank quickly. The other followed, both sipping as if water was the most precious thing they had tasted. Daniel warmed up more bread and rice, placing it on plates. The girls grabbed the food and ate fast. Their hands trembling, it broke his heart. They were starving like lost animals, yet their faces were human enough to show emotions. Fear, pain, relief, Daniel whispered to himself. Who are you? What happened to you? The girls spoke to each other in low voices, a strange language. It was soft and flowing, almost like singing, but filled with heavy sorrow. One looked at Daniel and tried broken words. Hide. Danger, hunters. The sound of that word sent a chill through his spine. Hunters. Who were these hunters? And why would they chase two starving girls? Daniel pulled the curtain shut and turned off the lights. Only the small lamp on the table gave a warm glow. He sat across from them, trying to calm his own fear. What do I do now? He whispered under his breath. He could call the police, but what would they do? He could tell someone, but would anyone believe him? And deep inside, a darker fear if the government found out. The girls would not be rescued. They would be studied like lab rats. The girls huddled close together, one resting her head on the other's shoulder. Daniel saw their thin arms, the bruises, the strange scars on their skin. Someone had hurt them before. Maybe during their escape he swallowed hard. Guilt rising in his chest. If I had not turned into that alley, they would still be starving in the dark. Now they were under his roof, and somehow he felt responsible. Hours passed slowly. Outside, the storm calmed, but Daniel's mind did not. He peeked through the curtain and saw the same black car parked far away. Headlights off, engine silent. It had not moved all night. His hand shook. Someone was watching. Waiting, he sat back down, trying not to show his fear. The girls whispered again, one reaching out with a thin hand, touching Daniel's arm. Her eyes glowed softly as she said in broken English, "Good, human." The words hit him like a stone. Good human, they trusted him. Even in their fear, Daniel gave a weak smile. "You can stay here tonight," he whispered. They tilted their heads, not catching all the words, but they nodded anyway. They lay down on the couch together, wrapping an old blanket Daniel gave them. In minutes they fell asleep, exhausted. Their breathing was soft, almost musical. Daniel watched them and felt something strange in his chest. Not fear now, but a heavy duty. These were not just strangers from another world. They were children in need, and he was the only one standing between them and danger. The night grew quiet, but Daniel could not sleep. Every sound outside made him jump at one point. He heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow and heavy, he froze, ears straining. The steps stopped near his door. Shadows moved under the crack. Then silence. Minutes felt like hours before the sound faded away. Daniel exhaled, sweat running down his forehead. Were they already searching here? He stayed awake until dawn, when the first light touched the window. He dared to breathe easier. The girls were still asleep, faces peaceful for the first time. Daniel whispered, "What have I gotten myself into?" But he already knew the answer. He could not abandon them no matter what danger followed. He had made his choice. The morning air was calm, but Daniel's heart was heavy with the feeling that this was only the beginning. The hunters were out there, and soon they would come knocking. The morning looked calm, but Daniel's heart carried the weight of the night. The two alien girls were still asleep on his couch, their small bodies wrapped tightly under the old blanket. Their faces looked softer in daylight, less frightening, more like lost children than strange creatures. For a moment, Daniel almost believed it was all a dream, but when one of them stirred and her silver-tinted skin caught the sun, reality hit him again. They were real, and they were in his home. Daniel made some toast quietly in the kitchen, his mind running in circles. He had no plan, no idea what to do next. But he knew one thing. The black car had not been a mistake. Someone was out there, and they were watching. The word from last night echoed in his head. Hunters. The girls were not just lost. They were being chased. The girls woke slowly. Blinking at the warm light, they looked calmer now. But the moment a dog barked outside, they jumped. Daniel hurried to them, speaking softly. "It's okay. Just a dog." They relaxed a little, but their glowing eyes still searched every corner. They were living in fear, and Daniel could feel it like a heavy fog around them. Later that day, Daniel decided to step outside for food. He told the girls to stay hidden, using hand signs and pointing to the couch. They nodded, understanding enough as he walked down the street. He felt eyes on him. The black car was gone, but two men in dark suits stood near the corner shop, pretending to talk. Their eyes flicked to Daniel when he passed. Cold and sharp, Daniel's stomach twisted. They were watching him, maybe waiting for a mistake. He bought bread, milk, and some canned food, hands shaking the whole time. When he walked back, he noticed something worse. A drone hovered high in the sky, small but clear against the clouds. Its red light blinked as it scanned the street. Daniel hurried inside, pulling the curtains shut the moment he reached his door. He whispered, "This is bad." The girls looked at him. Sensing his fear, one whispered again, broken English, "Run, soon." Daniel sat down, rubbing his face. He was one man with no weapons, no power, no protection, and yet he was standing against something much bigger. These were not random kidnappers. Not thieves. This was organized, trained, prepared. They were not looking for criminals. They were hunting aliens. And Daniel had just made himself their enemy, that evening. A strange sound came from the alley outside. The dogs barked and growled louder than usual. Daniel peeked out and froze. Two men were scanning the walls with strange devices. Like handheld radars, one of them said, "Signal weak." "But it's close," the other answered. "They can't hide long. Keep scanning." Daniel's blood ran cold. They were searching house by house, and soon they would reach his. He turned back to the girls, whispering, "We need to go." No, they didn't understand all the words, but they saw the urgency in his face. He grabbed a backpack, stuffed some food and water, and gestured for them to follow. The girls clung to his hands, their small frames shaking. Daniel led them out the back door. Moving quickly through the narrow alleyways, the city felt different now. Every shadow looked like a trap, every sound like a threat. Daniel kept them close, his heart pounding. He knew the hunters had more tools, more power, more people. But he had something else, determination. He would not let them take the girls. They reached an old warehouse near the edge of town. It was abandoned, windows broken, doors rusted. Daniel pushed the door open carefully and led the girls inside. Dust filled the air, the smell of rust and wood heavy. The girls sat down quietly, their glowing eyes watching him with silent trust. Daniel leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. For a moment they were safe, but safety never lasted. Through a crack in the broken window, Daniel saw flashing lights in the distance, trucks, maybe government. Moving slowly through the streets, he whispered, "They're sweeping the whole area." The girls looked at him, one whispering softly, "Hide." "Crash ship." Daniel leaned forward. "Ship? You mean your ship?" They nodded weakly, pointing toward the forest beyond the town. Daniel's eyes widened. They had come from a crash, and the ship was still out there. That meant two things. One, the girls had nowhere else to run. Two, the hunters already knew about it. Daniel clenched his fists. If they reached the ship, maybe they could find answers, maybe even safety. But the road there would be full of danger. Night fell again. The warehouse was dark. The only sound the distant echo of sirens and drones. Daniel looked at the girls curled up together under his jacket. Their eyes closing in exhaustion, he whispered, "I'll protect you. I promise." But deep inside he knew the chase had only just begun. The hunters were closing in, and soon Daniel would have to risk everything, his home, his safety, even his life, to keep them safe. The warehouse was cold and silent. Daniel sat against the wall, eyes heavy, but sleep would not come. Every sound outside made his heart jump. Every gust of wind felt like footsteps. The alien girls slept close together, their breath soft and strange. Glowing faintly in the darkness, Daniel whispered to himself, "How can I protect them like this?" He was only one man, unarmed, with nothing but courage and a backpack of food. The hunters had cars, drones, strange devices, and no mercy. Daniel rubbed his face, feeling the weight of his choice. He could still walk away, leave the girls here, pretend he had seen nothing, but when he looked at their fragile faces, he knew he never would. They trusted him, and that trust chained his heart. The night stretched on, sometime after midnight. Daniel woke to a faint glow. At first he thought it was the moon shining through the broken window, but when he turned, he saw one of the girls kneeling beside her sister. Her small hands hovered over a wound on the other's arm. The wound glowed blue, the skin knitting together like magic. Daniel's eyes widened, his breath caught. "She can heal," he whispered in shock. The girl's glowing hands dimmed as the wound closed completely, leaving no scar. The healed girl opened her eyes and gave a small smile, whispering something soft in their strange language. Daniel felt his chest tighten. They weren't helpless at all. They had powers no human could imagine. The next day, Daniel led them toward the forest. They had to stay hidden, and the ship was their only hope. The girls walked quietly, heads down, their silver-tinted skin covered by Daniel's jackets. Still, they stood out, and every passing car made Daniel's heart race. Twice he saw men in black scanning the streets, their strange devices beeping faintly. The hunters were getting closer by afternoon. They reached the edge of the forest. The tall trees stretched high, shadows deep, air filled with damp earth. Daniel thought it was the perfect place to hide, but the girls looked tense. Their glowing eyes scanned the trees, fear written on their faces. Daniel whispered, "We're safe here," though even he did not believe it fully. As they walked deeper, a sudden buzzing sound filled the air. A drone hovered above the trees, red light blinking as it scanned. Daniel grabbed the girls and pulled them behind a fallen log. His heart hammered. The drone hovered closer, searching. Then something incredible happened. The second girl pressed her hands together, eyes glowing bright white. The air around them shimmered, bending like water. Daniel gasped as the world shifted. His body felt covered by invisible light. The drone passed overhead, scanning, but its red light blinked once and then faded. Moving away, it had seen nothing. The girl collapsed back. Breathing hard, her glow fading, Daniel stared in disbelief. "You can hide us." The girl gave a weak nod. Whispering one word, "light." Daniel sat back. Stunned, one girl could heal. The other could bend light itself to hide. Together, they were more than survivors. They were special, maybe even powerful, but that also meant the hunters knew, and that made them worth more than life itself. They moved deeper into the forest, the girls weak from using their powers, Daniel carrying them one by one across rough paths. By nightfall, they found an old hunter's cabin. Abandoned and broken, Daniel pushed open the door, the smell of dust and wood filling his nose. It wasn't much, but it was shelter. He laid the girls on a dusty bed, covering them with blankets as they rested. Daniel thought of everything he had seen. Healing wounds, bending light, powers that could change everything. If the government caught them, they would never see freedom again. They would be locked away, studied, turned into weapons. Daniel clenched his fists. He whispered, "Not while I breathe." Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed outside, boots crunching leaves. Radios crackling faintly. Daniel froze. Peeking through the broken wall, flashlights cut through the trees. Voices calling, "They're close. Scanners picked something up here." Daniel's blood turned to ice. The hunters had tracked them. The dogs from the town appeared from the shadows. Barking wildly, they had followed Daniel, loyal to the one who fed them. Their barking drew the hunters away for a moment. Daniel seized the chance, whispering to the girls, "We have to move now." They stirred, weak but understanding, together. They slipped out the back of the cabin and into the deeper forest. Behind them, the hunters shouted, flashlights sweeping, the dogs barked louder. Delaying the chase, Daniel ran, pulling the girls with him. His lungs burning, the girls stumbled, but he lifted them, refusing to stop. Branches scratched his arms. Mud splashed his clothes, but he pushed on. The sound of pursuit grew louder, the hunters close, then just ahead, the forest opened into a clearing, and there, under the moonlight, Daniel saw the broken frame of a strange craft. Metal twisted, glowing faintly, half buried in dirt and vines. The girls gasped, their glowing eyes wide. Their ship, their only link to home, but before they could reach it, a voice shouted from behind, "Stop! Don't move!" Flashlights burst into the clearing. Red lasers dotting Daniel's chest. The hunters had arrived. Daniel spread his arms wide, shielding the girls. His voice shook but was firm. "You'll have to go through me." The clearing was bright with flashlights, red dots dancing on Daniel's chest. The hunters moved forward slowly, their black suits shining under the moon. Daniel stood tall, his arms spread wide, shielding the two alien girls behind him. His heart thundered, but he refused to step aside. One hunter shouted, "Move away, civilian. This is not your concern." Daniel's jaw tightened. "They're just children," he shouted back, his voice echoing through the forest. The hunters exchanged cold looks, their weapons steady. "They are not children," one replied. "They are property." Daniel's stomach twisted, the word stabbing into his chest. Property. How could anyone call them that? Before the hunters could move closer, the ship behind them hummed faintly. The broken metal glowed, strange energy pulsing through the cracks. The girls clutched Daniel's arms, whispering words in their language. Urgent and trembling, one looked up at him. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. Home. Gone. All gone, she whispered in broken English. Daniel froze. This was not just about two runaways. There was a story here, deeper, darker. The hunters stepped closer. One raising a strange device, it beeped. Lights blinking as it scanned the girls. Signal confirmed, the hunter said. These are the last survivors. Daniel's breath caught. Last survivors? Survivors of what? The girls pressed their foreheads together, whispering in their own tongue. Their voices shook with grief. Daniel knelt down quickly, trying to understand. Tell me, he said softly. What happened to you? One girl placed her small hand on his chest, her glowing fingers trembling. A faint image flashed in Daniel's mind. Cities burning under a red sky, giant ships firing beams of fire, screaming voices fading into silence. He gasped and fell back. The vision ended. Leaving his body shaking, the girl whispered, Planet, dead, all dead. Daniel's heart sank like a stone. Their world had been destroyed, their people gone. These two girls were not just refugees. They were the last of their kind. Tears blurred his vision as he looked at them. So small, so fragile, yet carrying the weight of an entire lost race. The hunters raised their weapons higher, one shouting, Step aside, human. They belong to us now. Daniel clenched his fists, fury burning inside him. They don't belong to you, he growled. They belong to no one. The hunters advanced. Lasers steady. The girls huddled closer to Daniel, fear radiating from their glowing eyes. Then the air shifted. One of the girls stood. Raising her trembling hand, her eyes glowed bright. And the ground shook slightly. The hunters froze, their weapons flickering as if jammed. The other girl touched Daniel's arm, whispering, Brother. Safe. Daniel stared at her, shocked. They saw him not as a stranger, not as a captor, but as family. The hunters regrouped quickly, shouting commands. One pulled out a radio, barking where we found them, requesting immediate extraction. Daniel knew they had only minutes, maybe less. The girls turned to him, their voices desperate. Run, please. But Daniel shook his head. No more running, he whispered. Not until I know why you're being hunted. The girls exchanged a painful glance, then slowly nodded. One whispered, Weapon, secret. The word made Daniel's blood turn cold. Weapon? He asked. What do you mean? The girl touched her chest, then her sister's. Inside power. Too dangerous, Daniel understood then. The hunters weren't just after survivors. They were after the girls' powers. Healing, light, maybe even more. Weapons that could change the balance of war. The ship behind them pulsed again, faint sparks glowing from its broken hull. Daniel realized it wasn't just debris. It was alive, or at least half alive, trying to protect them. The hunters moved closer, shouting again. Hand them over or you will die with them. Daniel looked at the girls. Then back at the hunters, his fear burned away, leaving only steel in his voice. You'll have to kill me first. The hunters raised their rifles, red lights glowing brighter. Daniel braced himself, ready for the end. But before a shot could be fired, the ground shook violently. A wave of energy burst from the broken ship, knocking the hunters back. Daniel shielded the girls as the clearing exploded with light. When the glow faded, the hunters were scattered, groaning on the ground, their weapons fried. The girls stood trembling, drained from what had just happened. Daniel held them tightly, whispering, It's okay. I've got you. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The hunters would not stop. The girl's truth was too important, too dangerous, and now Daniel carried it too. As the forest grew quiet again, the girls looked at him with sorrowful eyes. One whispered, Promise, no cage. Daniel nodded firmly. I promise no one will cage you, not while I live. The girls pressed their glowing hands together, a small spark of light rising between them. It flickered like a star, fading into the night. Daniel watched it and felt the weight of his choice settle deeper on his shoulders. They were no longer just strangers hiding in his home. They were the last of their people, hunted for powers they did not want. And he, a simple man, had become their shield. The hidden truth was clear now. Protecting them meant standing against forces far greater than himself. But Daniel's voice was steady as he whispered into the night. They're not alone anymore. The forest was quiet again, but Daniel's heart would not rest. The hunters had been thrown back by the strange pulse of the broken ship, but they would return, stronger and angrier. He looked at the alien girls, their silver-tinted skin glowing faintly in the night, their small hands clutching his arms. They were exhausted, their powers drained, yet their eyes were full of trust. They believed he could protect them, but Daniel knew the truth. He was only human, and humans were fragile. Still, he refused to give up. He led them deeper into the forest, the moon their only guide. The dogs that once followed him in the streets now moved beside them. Growling softly whenever danger felt near, Daniel whispered, "Good boys. Stay close." The girls tilted their heads at the animals, whispering something soft in their own language. The dogs wagged their tails, calmer under the sound of those strange voices. By dawn, they reached the edge of an old industrial area. Rusty buildings stood silent, broken glass glittering in the dirt. Daniel chose a warehouse with half its roof collapsed. Inside, he found shadows and silence, but at least it was shelter. The girls curled up together on an old blanket he laid down, their glowing eyes slowly closing. Daniel stood at the broken doorway. Keeping watch, he had no weapons, no plan, no backup, but he had something the hunters did not. Loyalty. He whispered to himself, their children, their survivors, and their mind to protect. The weight of that promise sat heavy on his chest, but it gave him strength. The day passed quietly, but near evening, Daniel heard the hum of engines. He peeked out and saw black trucks rolling slowly down the road. Men in dark suits walked beside them, holding scanners that blinked red. They were searching step by step, block by block. Daniel's breath caught. Soon they would find the warehouse. He shook the girls awake gently, whispering, "We have to move again." They blinked in confusion. Weak from hunger and exhaustion, one whispered, "No more run." But Daniel only shook his head. "We don't stop, not yet," he said. Even though his body ached, they slipped out through the back, moving across the ruins of the industrial yard. The dogs followed, ears flat, teeth bared, sensing danger. When a drone buzzed overhead, the second girl tried to bend the light again, but she stumbled, her glow too faint, her body trembling. Daniel caught her before she fell, whispering, "Don't push yourself, I'll keep us hidden." He led them into the tunnels beneath the old factory. Dark and damp, the air heavy with mold. The girls shivered, clinging to him. He whispered, "Stay quiet." The hunters' voices echoed faintly from above, radios crackling. Signal moving south. "They're close," one said. Daniel held his breath. Pulling the girls into the shadows, boots stomped overhead. Dust falling from the ceiling, the sound moved away. But not far, hours later, when it was safe, Daniel let them rest in the tunnel. The younger girl touched his arm and whispered, "Brother." "Why help?" Daniel looked at her, heart twisting. He wanted to say because it was the right thing. He wanted to say because no one else would, but what came out was simple. "Because you need me." The girl smiled faintly, resting her head on his shoulder. Daniel felt warmth in his chest, stronger than fear. But danger returned before morning. A sudden howl of dogs echoed from above, not his dogs, but trained hounds. The hunters had released trackers. Daniel's dogs barked back fiercely, standing between the tunnel exit and the enemy. The clash of barks and growls filled the night. Daniel knew his dogs could not hold them off forever. He led the girls deeper through water and broken pipes, until they reached another exit. When they crawled out, the forest stretched wide before them again. The moon was high, and in the distance, helicopters circled slowly. The hunters were not giving up. Daniel whispered, "We can't keep running like this." His body shook with exhaustion, but his voice was steady. "We fight when we must." That night, in a small clearing, Daniel built a fire. The girls sat close, staring at the flames. One whispered, "Fire. Safe." Daniel nodded. Safe for now, though he knew it was a lie. The fire might keep wild animals away, but it also gave away their location. Yet something inside him refused to hide in darkness forever. If they wanted to test his humanity, they would see how far a human heart could go. The girls leaned against him, whispering soft words. He didn't understand their language, but he understood the feeling. They trusted him completely. He thought of all the times people had told him he was weak, ordinary, nothing special, but here under the stars, 2 survivors of another world called him brother, and that was enough to make him strong. The night ended with distant engines and flashing lights. The hunters were sweeping the forest again, closer, tighter. Daniel tightened his grip on the girl's hands. This was more than a chase now. It was a test, not of their powers but of his humanity. Would he stand or would he break? Daniel whispered into the cold night air. As long as I'm alive. You're not alone. The forest was alive with engines and voices. Helicopters circled above, their spotlights slicing through the trees like blades. Trucks rolled along the dirt paths, radios crackling with orders. The hunters were closing in, and Daniel knew there was no more time to run. He stood in the clearing with the alien girls beside him, their small hands clutching his arms. His dogs circled the edge of the clearing, growling low, ready to defend. The girls looked at him with glowing eyes full of fear and trust. One whispered, "Brother." "Danger here?" Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, but danger ends tonight." He turned to the broken ship behind them, its twisted frame glowing faintly as if it still held a spark of life. The girls had led him here for a reason, and Daniel hoped that reason would be enough. The ground shook as trucks stopped nearby. Voices shouted, boots stomping closer. Then the hunters emerged from the shadows. Black suits shining, weapons raised. Lasers pointed at Daniel's chest. One hunter called out, "Step aside, human. This is your final warning." Daniel stepped forward instead, shielding the girls with his body. His voice was steady, though his heart thundered. "You call them property. You call them weapons, but they're children. And they're under my protection." The hunters sneered. One spitting, "You don't understand what they are. They will bring ruin." Daniel shook his head. "No, they will bring hope. If you let them live." The hunters raised their weapons. Red lights glowing, Daniel clenched his fists, ready to face death. But before the first shot fired, the ship behind them roared to life. Its broken hull glowed bright, sending waves of light across the clearing. The hunters staggered, shielding their eyes. The girls stepped forward, their bodies glowing brighter than ever. One girl raised her hands, light bending around them, forming a shimmering shield. The other placed her hands on Daniel's chest, and a warm energy spread through him. His pain, his exhaustion, even his fear melted away. He felt strong, stronger than ever. Together, the girls' powers fused with the ship's faint energy. The clearing burned with light. The hunters screamed, firing their weapons. But the bolts of energy bounced off the shield, exploding harmlessly in the air. The dogs charged forward, snapping at the hunters' legs, scattering their line. Daniel picked up a fallen metal pipe, swinging it with furious strength. He struck one hunter down, then another. He was only human, but in that moment he felt unstoppable. The hunters regrouped, shouting, "Take them alive! Kill the human if you must." Daniel stood firm, battered but unbroken. "You'll never have them," he shouted. The girls stepped to his side, glowing like twin stars. One whispered softly, "Brother, hold on." Then the sky opened, a beam of light shot down from the clouds. Brighter than the sun, the hunters froze, shielding their eyes in panic. A massive ship descended slowly, its silver frame silent yet powerful. It hovered above the clearing, casting shadows across the forest. Daniel stared in awe, his chest tight. The girls looked up, tears in their glowing eyes, whispering, "Home." The hunters tried to retreat, but the new ship released a wave of energy that fried their weapons. Men screamed, radios died, drones fell from the sky like broken birds. The hunters scattered, defeated, their power useless against the greater force. The girls turned to Daniel, clutching his hands. "Brother, safe now," one whispered. Daniel's throat tightened. "Are you leaving?" he asked softly, though he already knew the answer. They nodded, sorrow in their eyes. "Home gone." "But new home waiting," the older one said, pointing to the sky. The younger added, "You, always, brother." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. He had risked everything, fought with nothing but his humanity. And in return, he had saved the last survivors of a lost world. He knelt down, hugging them tightly, whispering, "Be safe. Never forget who you are." They pressed their glowing hands to his chest one last time, a warmth filling his heart. Then they stepped into the beam of light. Rising slowly toward the great ship above, Daniel watched them disappear into the sky. The forest silent once more. The hunters lay scattered and broken. Their mission failed. The dogs returned to Daniel's side, tails wagging softly as if sensing the battle was over. Daniel sank to his knees, exhausted but alive, above. The great ship vanished into the stars, carrying the girls away. He whispered into the night, "Goodbye, my sisters. The forest grew quiet again. Only the rustle of leaves in the wind, but Daniel knew the world had changed. He was just one man, but his choice had mattered. He had stood against power, cruelty, and fear, and he had won. Not because of weapons, not because of strength, but because of something far greater, because he was human.